And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers, we're here every week discussing topical issues and meeting interesting people. And Ken, another show today that's very topical.
Indeed, we're going to be talking with Dewey Bartlett Jr., the chairman of the Oklahoma Energy Resources Board. A lot of talk about energy, a lot of talk about energy resources. And we're going to talk about Dewey's involvement with the OERB and what they're doing about it. They don't simply clean up old well sites, although that is a significant part of what you know about them. They do a lot of other things in the oil and gas industry that are of benefit to us and to our viewers. And we are looking forward to talking to him about that.
Looking forward to the conversation. We'll be right back with Dewey Bartlett Jr. right after this.
What if America had its own clean energy? Abundant and available for the next century or more, and possibly indefinitely. A true 21st century energy source would cut carbon emissions in half and do every living thing a world of good. That clean American energy exists. It's natural gas, and Chesapeake is its #1 explorer. For producing clean electricity and fueling our cars without imported oil, natural gas saves money and the environment. Proving the answer to this country's energy needs is right under our feet, and we're not running out. Clean, abundant, affordable, American natural gas. Doing a world of good for our communities, our economy, and our irreplaceable planet Earth.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Very pleased today to have joining us Dewey Bartlett Jr., the chairman of the Oklahoma Energy Resources Board and also president of Keener Oil in Tulsa. Dewey did his undergraduate work in Colorado Springs at Regis College, I believe, yes, and did an MBA in finance at Southern Methodist University. Is the current chairman of the Oklahoma Energy Resources Board, has been a member of many state and civic organizations as well as elective positions, member of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, the City Council of Tulsa, and the Oklahoma Academy of State Goals, just to mention a few. This is his first visit to The Verdict. Welcome. Sure glad to have you.
Well, thank you. It's a real treat for me to be here.
Well, great to have you down. And let's talk first of all just about the industry itself. What's your take on the oil and gas industry in Tulsa and in Oklahoma?
Well, it's really doing pretty well. I mean, it's slowing down a bit now, but more of what I'm seeing as far as the slowdown goes really affects the service companies, drilling rigs in particular. Price of oil and natural gas has really had a very precipitous drop, and the first group that really gets hit normally are the drilling contractors and all the different companies that support them, mud companies, logging companies, just a variety of people. There's certainly been a slowdown in that segment of the industry, hopefully not for long, but it will be for a while, I'm afraid. Many of the drilling projects that we've seen in Oklahoma in the past several years have really required a fairly high price of crude oil and natural gas for the projects to be profitable and to make sense. So many of those projects now are kind of iffy as far as new drilling activity goes. So we will see that being slow for a bit, I'm afraid.
Yeah, now I always hear people say, well, at what level can the oil and gas industry survive? We could all debate the level of prosperity that the industry might enjoy in good times. But at what level do you just say, look, it's just over if it drops below X?
Many years ago, it was about $15 a barrel for oil and about $2 for natural gas. Today, I think that is probably about 25 for oil, 20 to 25 for oil, and about $3 for natural gas. Right now, we're at a level where it's pretty low, really is. So we won't see a lot of new things happening. I don't think we'll see a widespread laying off of employees like we saw many years ago. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, fortunately.
But when it's low, like it is, then companies are less aggressive about new wells.
Correct.
Their philanthropy begins to drop.
Yes.
And maybe they don't lay off employees, as you said, but they're probably not expanding their employee base.
They certainly won't be.
Basically, right?
That's very correct. And like I said earlier, the first thing that really does hit the axe is new drilling. It will come to a screeching halt, and that's not good because our industry really lives and dies literally by drilling, because we're constantly selling the product that we produce, that we find, oil or natural gas. It's a depleting asset. So we have to replenish it by either buying it or by drilling. And I think more people realize that there's more significant oil or natural gas to be found by drilling. So when that slows down, then the industry itself gets a little slower.
Well, you're not only have a leadership position in OERB, but you're in the business yourself.
Absolutely.
With Keener. How do you adjust as a businessman to when the price of the product that you're selling, if you will, jumps from $40 to gasp? Boone Pickens suggested it might go possibly to $100 a barrel. He was pretty conservative, went to 140 or whatever it is. Now it's back down to 45 or 50. I don't know currently what the price is. But these wild fluctuations in the price of the product that you're selling, how do you as a business person adjust to that?
It's hard, because it just really is nuts when
How do you
prices
plan?
go. Well, you can't plan. I mean, it's very difficult because there's all sorts of opinions all over the map about what the price is going to be in the future. And there's so much that's out of our control, and it's just pure conjecture about what the price might be 5 years from now, or much less 5 weeks from now. We really don't know. So we have to be, I think, conservative in how we run our businesses. We have to keep our borrowings at the bank at a fairly low level, a manageable level. We can't get too extravagant. We really have to watch what we do. We have to assume that there's going to be a slowing down of the prices, which we're seeing now. Many years ago, I think that when we saw huge problems in the industry, companies had been too aggressive, had borrowed too much money. Interest rates at that time were very, very high, and it really put a lot of people out of business because of all the problems, and it was just terrible. I don't think we're going to see that this time around. Many people learned their lesson. They remembered well how difficult it was to stay in business at that point. Today, what we have to do is watch what we get involved with. Our company, we're still looking at new ideas, new projects. And but what we're trying to do is to look at projects that aren't as expensive as what we had been doing. Even though the price of crude oil and natural gas had really gone up quite a bit, our cost of drilling those wells had a commensurate rise. And that has not dropped much recently. Certainly not to the degree that we've seen the prices drop. So we have to look and get involved in projects that are probably a little bit less risky and certainly less expensive. That's what we're doing as a company.
Sometimes when people criticize the industry, they use the term speculators. Speculators do this, speculators do that. Who are speculators? I've never heard anyone raise their hand and say, I am a speculator. Who are these people, and are they even related to the industry itself, those that are investing and guessing about which way the price of oil is going to go?
Usually they are people that are involved in the commodities market, the speculators.
So they're more into finance than they are into energy.
Absolutely. And they're in the trading of the product. of the crude oil and natural gas, and they trade the contract to buy crude oil or natural gas at certain points in time. They never take delivery of the product. They simply feel that if they buy it, that they can make a profit on the spread when they sell it, either if they assume it's going to go up or down, and they're just in and out of the market very quickly. The
assumption that they can drive it up, irrelevant to the supply chain or the supply and demand, is that accurate? Can that happen?
I think it is accurate. 60 Minutes did an interesting story Sunday evening, a report on the speculators, on the traders. And it was a pretty well done report, I thought. But it talked a lot about these traders and about how they really controlled a very significant amount of the crude oil business without ever taking delivery of the crude oil, and that they really had a lot of control, or at least a lot of influence over the direction of the pricing. But again, they contribute no money to the industry. They don't drill wells. They don't support the industry other than trying to make a spread in the trade.
What, put on your prognosis hat, or look into our crystal ball, or whatever you'd like. What do you see happening to pricing in the oil and gas area in the next year, 18 months?
I think it will increase to a degree. I don't think it'll increase sharply, nothing like we've seen before. And again, a lot of that is based upon the fact that we really haven't seen any difference of any consequence in the market for crude oil. There's still the similar players that are involved. The countries that consume so much crude oil are still consuming, or have the ability to consume, about the same amount, mainly China, India, United States. We haven't seen any kind of a change as far as alternative energies go. Much of that is a result of the low prices we're seeing now. The consumer still looks at what the alternatives are and how much they cost. There's certainly, most people are not going to go out and spend more for an alternative energy source, no matter how great it feels or how good it sounds. People simply will buy because how it affects their pocketbook. That's true with whether it's apples or gasoline. Same thing across the board.
We're going to jump in and get us to our first break. We're visiting with Dewey Bartlett Jr. When we come back, we'll talk about the OERB and what's ahead in 2009. Stay with us.
I'm Major Matthew Newmeyer, currently stationed at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and I'm a Chickasaw. In 2003, when I was part of the drive to Baghdad, I found being a soldier was going to be a lot more than just firing your weapon and being in a combat situation. Being a warrior, but also being the good citizen. That is probably why American soldiers are so respected, because here are 18 to 20-year-olds, 1 minute they're in combat, people are shooting at them. The next minute, they're treating children just as if they were in their own home. That warrior ethos that the Chickasaws had also translates directly to what you do as a soldier. Strength, integrity, the grace, and the idea that you're part of a greater community, that you give to that community, that you find it important to be the best you can be at what you're doing.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma Realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Welcome back to The Verdict. We are visiting with Dewey Bartlett Jr., and in this segment, we're going to talk more about his role with the OERB. Kent?
Dewey, you are chairman of the OERB. How are your current projects progressing? Are you still cleaning up old well sites, as your advertising indicates?
Yeah, oh yeah, we're doing a good job of that. Matter of fact, we just hit our 9,400th site, 9,400. We've spent to date, ever since the organization was put together about 15 years ago, we've spent in excess of $50 million cleaning up old sites, old abandoned well sites.
At no expense to the public.
Zero tax money. I mean, that's the great story about this whole business that we're involved with here. It is just the right thing to do. The industry has stood up to take control of the situation, do the right thing, not rely upon government to take care of it for us. And I think that's the real good story.
Well, how does Oklahoma compare with other states as far as being responsible in cleaning up those old wells?
Well, we're the first one. I mean, we really are.
Are we still the first one, the only one?
There are 2 or 3 others. Kansas, New Mexico, and Illinois, and I think Ohio have all enacted similar programs that we have done. Texas has attempted a few times, but they haven't been able to get it done for some reason or another. But we're still far and away the biggest and the best. I mean, we're in a mega leap ahead of everybody else. So pretty incredible.
Now, just so our viewers will remember, we've had, as I say, a number of OERB guests on in the past, but basically your members put up the cost of the cleanup.
Yes, we assess ourselves roughly 2 cents per every barrel of oil that's produced in Oklahoma, and a similar amount for every amount of natural gas that's sold in Oklahoma. We put that in a kitty, and we use that as our board sees fit. Half of it roughly is used for cleaning up abandoned well sites and well locations. The other half is used for public relations purposes, education purposes, scholarship purposes. We have a program that we've just completed for weatherizing homes where people actually are living that are not experiencing very good weatherization. So we feel that's a responsible thing to do.
I assume when OERB started, there was some sort of estimate about how many of these sites might be out there in Oklahoma, and then the chore started to see how many of them could be addressed. At some point, do you ever reach them all? Do you ever stop and start going down the downhill side?
Unfortunately, we probably won't see that in many, many years. The estimates are very difficult to come up with, but we have a kind of a rough idea that there's about 60,000 in Oklahoma.
Wow.
The state itself, we've drilled at least 600,000 wells since records were kept, and so we're assuming that maybe if 10% of those had not been dealt with properly. Most of what we're seeing have occurred prior to the say 1940s. And it was back at the time, of course, when the environmental responsibility really was not understood, or it wasn't part of the terrain, so to speak. But now obviously it is. We all realize we have to be responsibly correct in how we do things and how we run our businesses. And so all the wells that are drilled now these days are all cleaned up properly, they're monitored properly. The Oklahoma Corporation Commission does a terrific job of making sure that we're doing things properly. So what we're doing is taking care of, unfortunately, past sins that people just didn't see the reason for, or whatever.
But your membership is entirely voluntary, is it not?
Absolutely. This is all a voluntary deal. Companies, if they decide not to, either companies or royalty owners are very involved with this whole decision, and if they want, they can ask for a refund. We have a procedure to go through that when people feel that they would like to have their money back, they can request it and they give it back. Fortunately, we've had terrific support both from the companies that participate, that do business in Oklahoma in the oil and gas industry, as well as royalty owners. There are a few that do, for their own reasons, ask for their money back, and we give it back to them, no questions asked. We certainly encourage them to leave it in if they would like to, but they have their own reasons, and that's how we do things.
That certainly is a prime example of a self-regulating industry. I know a lot of industries claim to be self-regulating, but you sometimes wonder. This is a good example of one that is. How is the market for jobs in the industry now holding up, at least in recent times?
I think it's still pretty good. Now, certainly in the drilling side of things, the service companies, they're seeing some slowdown, and as I said earlier. But I believe that the companies themselves, they may not be hiring too many people, but they're certainly not laying anybody off. So I think for people that feel that the energy industry is something good to keep in their mind for future job opportunities, I think it's still there. It's very strong. I mean, we have an industry that certainly is very, very vital to our nation's security and for our well-being, both as an economy, but also for our security. And Oklahoma is going to be looked upon to provide good educated workforce for decades to come. So I think the future looks very, very good for anybody that wants to consider energy as an opportunity.
Well, your program for educators in the school, is that what you're referring to?
That's part of it, but also we also have a very significant scholarship program. We presently have about 140 students that are our scholars that are attending either OU, OSU, or the University of Tulsa, and are majoring in a petroleum-related degree, geology, petroleum engineering, landman, similar majors. And we have committed so far $1.2 million to support those scholars. We're accepting applications now. The deadline is sometime in March. So we're always looking for new scholars, but we really think it's responsible for us to provide scholarship money for students that want to learn the industry with the idea that hopefully they'll stay here. We will educate them here and hopefully they'll stay here, bring down roots, start families, and then we've got another new generation of good people to be in our industry.
Mick alluded to it just a second ago, but you also have a program for classroom teachers, do you not,
Absolutely.
to use with their students to talk about the industry. Can you tell our viewers about that?
It's really one of the reasons that the OERB got started, because what we wanted to do was to have a positive influence on the educational opportunity that our high school students and junior high school students were seeing at the state-supported schools. We have various programs to tell the teachers what the industry is all about. We provide them at no cost to themselves. We provide them a lot of different programs, a lot of different supporting documentation, things that they can do in the classroom to show the kids where energy comes from and what it means when something is made out of oil or out of natural gas. A lot of different projects are created by this program, again at no cost to the schools or to the students, but that's again what we help pay for.
Do you have good participation in the schools seeking this program?
Terrific. I was at Sam's a few weeks ago, and a lady came up to me and she recognized me, and she just wanted to thank me for what the OERB has been doing for her classroom. And she was, I mean, very sincere. I mean, you could just tell. She shook my hand and was just said, thank you very much, because it's very difficult for some of the schools to have enough money to pay for some of the science-oriented classes that they have. And so here we were able to come in and help support that by giving some money to the students
Got
and the teachers.
less than a minute to go. What are some of the facts about your industry that you'd like our public to know?
Well, obviously we have a terrific history in Oklahoma, but one of the most important things I believe is that the industry itself spends and contributes to the tax revenues of this state last year over $1 billion. The state budget was $7 billion, and we contributed almost 20% of a direct tax, the gross production tax, to this state. The educational opportunities that this state gives to all of the students in Oklahoma is very energy oriented, and it's really our backbone, our history, it's our foundation. It can lead, in my view, to a very sharp understanding of all the different alternative energies that are going to be created. So it's a great opportunity to be in Oklahoma in energy.
Dewey Bartlett, oil man from Tulsa, who's also very involved in the OERB. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our state.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
thanks, Dewey.
Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Need to get 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock.
good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back. We just finished a delightful interview with Dewey Bartlett Jr., who has his own business in Tulsa and speaks for the industry, but very active in the OERB and all the great things they're doing for the state.
Indeed, a unique organization that carries out a very important function here in the state for the benefit of all of us in this day where we talk about friendly to the environment and the like. There isn't an organization that could more adequately or effectively represent that concept in what it does in its own industry, and the fact that it is purely voluntary makes it truly outstanding.
And interesting that the industry gives $1 billion plus in taxes to our state. Can you imagine our state government with a significantly less impact from that industry? I mean, it's hard to imagine what we would do. We're moving on, but OERB is available by the internet at OERB.com. You can check out more information on their organization, and you can tell us about a show you'd like to see here on The Verdict by going to our website, theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.